Here we are inside the cabin. You can see it's just kind of one room, one main room that they would have acted as their kitchen, would have acted as their living room, would have acted as basically the room that everything was done in. You can see one feature we have is our wood burning stove. This would have been your source of heat. This would have been your source for hot food, hot water, probably one of the most important things that the family had. I'll get some wood out of my wood box here. It's probably time to stoke the fire. Just have some embers left. Let's take a look around and see what sorts of indoor chores would have needed to be done. So besides stocking the wood box and stoking the fire, I have something over here. Now this little box might not look very important to you, but this was something that every Scandinavian pioneer family would have had. And these beans go along with it. These are coffee beans. Now coffee might not seem very important to you, but this was something that everybody drank. Kids drank, moms and dads drank, grandparents drank it. Coffee was considered something that they had almost every meal, every single day. And the only way you could buy coffee was as a whole bean. But you can't use it as a whole bean, so you'd have to grind the coffee. And this would be a great chore for the kids to do in the morning. So the coffee just goes right up top here, and you spin the knob a couple of times. And let's see. Here's our coffee grounds. Another inside job, inside chore, is in my basket here. Now I have a certain material and this is wool. Wool is the fur of sheep. And this is what it looks like after you shear the sheep, when you cut the wool off of the sheep. You can't really use it that way. So the next step after shearing the sheep would be to card the wool. These are carding brushes. They're brushes that have super stiff metal bristles. You put them together like this and pull them apart in opposite directions. Ooh, there goes some. And as you do that, as you card the wool, the snarls get out, the dirt and grass will fall out. You're kind of cleaning it while you're combing it. And this is important to do because the next step in using the wool would be to spin the wool. Now, I don't have a spinning wheel or a spinning spindle to show you, but basically what spinning the wool does is it binds those fibers back together. Those fibers bind together and then you have yarn. Once you have yarn, you can knit or crochet or weave it into whatever you want to make. So think about making a winter hat. Think about those steps that need to be taken. First you shear the sheep, then you card the wool, then you spin the wool into yarn, and then you can knit your winter hat. So that might be a 3-month project. Everything the pioneers did, they always had to think ahead. They had to think, what's happening 6 months from now? What's happening 8 months from now? If it's a big project, I'm gonna have to start that today so that it's done in 6 months. Believe it or not, these two are the exact same thing. They might look very different, but they do the same job. These are both butter churns. Now, imagine waking up one morning and saying, Mom, I really just want bread and butter. That's what I want for breakfast. And Mom says, oh, I'm sorry, we ran out of butter. Can you make some? And of course, you say, okay, Mom, sure. So first you go milk the cow. After milking the cow, you bring the cream in and you pour it in this crock. Then you take the paddle and you churn and churn and churn and churn and churn. And after you do this for a long time, at some point the butter fat will separate from the buttercream. You'll take the buttercream out, but you don't throw it away. Of course, you save it. You're going to bake with it. You're going to cook with it. You never throw anything away. Being a pioneer, you saved everything. You could find a use for it. So you take the buttercream out, and then you kind of have this butter fat. You don't have butter yet. You take your special butter paddles, and you squeeze the butter. And what you're doing is you're making sure that all that cream comes out of it. Then you'll actually do something called washing the butter, where you add water to it and squeeze that water out again. And you do that until the water runs clear. It doesn't have a creamy look to it. And the reason for that is, when you looked around the cabin, did you see a refrigerator? No. So there's no way to refrigerate your food. So the butter would just sit on the table or on the counter, which is absolutely fine as long as you got the cream out. The cream would spoil, would mold before the butter fat does. So you had to take those extra steps to get all of the cream out of it. Now this, I said, is the exact same thing. This is also a butter churn. The paddles just go the opposite direction. And of course, it would make a less amount than that one would. Let's go head upstairs then. Now you can see the steps were just built right into this corner. They're pretty steep, tucked into the corner, and think about it, that takes up a lot less room. You don't need much more than a ladder to get up and down, so that's what they built. Now this would have been the bedroom of the house. This is where everybody would have slept. And at one point, there were up to 6 people that lived in this cabin. So just picture that in your head, 6 people all having this space, just living in these 2 rooms. You're probably surprised there aren't beds up here. When the family first moved here, they wouldn't have had beds because they wouldn't have had time to build a bed yet. What they would have had would have been a mattress on the floor. And that mattress would have been a sack that was sewn on 3 sides and then stuffed with dry grasses and dry leaves and things like that. They would have slept on top of that with blankets and quilts. Once they lived here for a while and they had enough time, they would have built a wooden frame bed, and they would have taken those mattresses off the floor and put it on that wooden frame. Of course, they wouldn't have all had their own beds. They would have been sharing beds.